For advanced Vipassana practitioners, a body scan means one specific thing: a linear, systematic sweep of attention from head to toe, designed to observe impermanence. But if you search the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's foundational discourse on mindfulness, that specific sweeping algorithm is nowhere to be found. The systematic sweep was actually engineered during the Burmese Vipassana reform movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The architects of this movement needed a way for lay people to directly perceive the Abhidhamma's model. Specifically, they wanted these practitioners to experience kalapas, subatomic particles arising and passing away with extreme rapidity inside the body. Teachers like U Ba Khin and S.N. Goenka hard-coded this kalapa hunting algorithm into a highly standardized 10-day curriculum. By industrializing the instruction, they made this specific technique synonymous with the concept of somatic meditation globally. The mechanics of a body scan are entirely dictated by the tradition's underlying ontological model of the human form, and the Burmese subatomic model is just one variation among many. This animated matrix shows how we can break out of single lineage silos and map the landscape of advanced somatic practices based on how they actually manipulate attention. The x-axis represents the spectrum of attentional intent. On the left extreme, we have objective observation, simply watching what arises. On the right, generative visualization, actively creating or manipulating sensation. The y-axis plots the teleological goal. The top represents deconstructive practices, aimed at dissolving the illusion of self. The bottom represents integrative practices, focused on regulating and healing the organism. This framework gives us 4 distinct paradigms: Burmese deconstruction, Thai forest anatomy, Vajrayana energetics, and modern clinical somatics. Knowing where a technique sits on this grid reveals exactly how it will alter your physiological and psychological experience. We start in the top left quadrant with Burmese Vipassana, pairing objective observation with a deconstructive goal. The foundational rule of the U Ba Khin lineage is that attention must act as a completely neutral probe. The practitioner is instructed to observe reality as it is, without interfering or generating any artificial sensations. The algorithm begins with a slow, part-by-part surface scan to build concentration. Once the mind is sharp, this shifts to an en masse sweeping motion, designed to detect uniform, subtle vibrations across the entire physical structure. In its most advanced stages, the practitioner executes a 3D penetration scan. Attention is driven straight through the thickness of the body, targeting internal solidity until it completely dissolves into a state known as bhanga. Operating in the same quadrant, the Mahasi Sayadaw tradition uses a completely different algorithm. Instead of a rigid, linear sweep, it employs an organic, decentralized noting practice, anchored by the rising and falling of the abdomen. When a distraction like sharp pain or an itch arises, Mahasi practitioners do not sweep past it. They use attention like a bee landing briefly on a flower, tagging the data point with a neutral mental note before returning to the anchor. Despite employing different routing mechanics, both methods use relentless, objective observation to dismantle the perception of a solid, permanent self. Also occupying the top left quadrant is the Thai forest tradition, though it deploys an entirely different attentional algorithm. Rather than sweeping for subatomic vibrations, the Patikulamangadasikara practice requires the meditator to analyze the body as raw biological matter, cataloging specific elements like bone, spleen, and bile. The mechanical movement of attention here is nonlinear. It rapidly jumps between internal organs and skeletal structures, aiming for total cognitive saturation rather than a systematic geographical sweep. This is grounded in the concept of asubha, or foulness. The meditator is not hunting for the bliss of energetic dissolution, but rather staring directly at the unattractive reality of anatomical flesh. By targeting gross anatomy instead of quantum vibrations, this algorithm intentionally severs sensual desire and bodily infatuation at their biological roots. Shifting to the right side of the matrix, we enter the realm of generative visualization. Here, attention ceases to be a passive observer and becomes an active creator. In the Japanese Zen tradition, Master Hakuin developed the Nanso no Ho, or soft ointment practice. He engineered this specifically to cure Zen sickness, a state of severe nervous system burnout caused by overly rigid meditation. The algorithm requires visualizing a fragrant, healing substance placed on the crown of the head. Using directed intention, the practitioner melts this sphere, allowing the bright fluid to flow downward, washing over the skin and filling the internal cavities. The physiological intent of Hakuin's scan is highly specific. It physically routes vital energy downward, washing away blockages and pushing toxic tension out through the soles of the feet. This act of routing is pushed to its extreme in Tibetan Vajrayana. Here, the body is treated as a precise engineering schematic, composed of subtle winds, or prana, running through a network of internal channels. In exercises like Tsa Lung, the practitioner utilizes vase breathing, a strict breath retention technique, combined with dynamic physical movements to manually force these vital winds into the central channel. Generative algorithms do not passively wait for tension to pass away. They aggressively manipulate subtle energy to force physiological integration and accelerate psychological awakening. Dropping down into the bottom left quadrant, we find integrative observation. Frameworks like somatic experiencing strip away the Buddhist teleology entirely, utilizing awareness strictly for autonomic nervous system regulation. Modern clinical paradigms directly translate traditional contemplative experiences. What a Vipassana meditator calls an erupting sankhara of past karma, a somatic therapist identifies as a trauma knot, or an energy-like somatic experience. The clinical algorithm abandons the Vipassana practice of aditana, where a meditator sits motionless through excruciating pain with unyielding equanimity. Instead, clinical somatics demands biological safety. To achieve this, practitioners use the mechanic of pendulation. Attention is deliberately shifted back and forth between a zone of high tension in the body and a neutral, grounded area, acting as a biological resource. This back and forth movement facilitates titration. It allows the body to process and discharge chronic tension in small, manageable doses without overwhelming the nervous system. When the objective pivots from ego death to nervous system regulation, the required algorithm switches from ascetic confrontation to strategic, regulated observation. The primary fallacy hindering advanced meditators is the assumption that a single somatic algorithm serves as a universal cure-all. Highly technical, non-Buddhist somatic algorithms exist explicitly for dismantling physical blockages. This proves the existence of a broader, universally applicable somatic technology that extends far beyond one specific lineage. This gives us a practical toolkit. If a practitioner's friction stems from deep egoic identification, they should deploy Yu Ba Kin's 3D penetration or Pa-Ox elemental dissection to shatter the perception of solidity. However, if practice is stalled by structural tension, nervous system burnout, or trauma, rigid sweeping will only exacerbate the issue. In these moments, the practitioner must pivot to Zen's generative healing or clinical pendulation. Mastery isn't defined by the sheer number of hours a person can sit and endlessly sweep. It is defined by an architectural understanding of how one's own attention operates. A true contemplative practice requires flexibility. It means deploying the exact somatic algorithm necessary to solve the specific biological and psychological friction of the present moment.